Howdy gamers. Let's talk about the runes for Pantheon top lane, mid lane, and jungle, I suppose, as he can be played in multiple roles, and the purpose that he has in the different lanes is about the same, but in the jungle role, it really does shift of like how he has to be played, since he's inevitably like at a lower economy than he would be if he's being played in a solo lane. So in the solo lanes, his dominant keystone is going to be Conquer, as it gives him a better scaling option. With Conquer, your basic attacks and spells that deal damage to enemy champions grant you 2 stacks of Conquer. That gives you bonus adaptive force that's based on your level, as if you're in the jungle, you're at a lower level and you're at a lower amount of gold, so you want to be getting as much AD built up from Conquer compared to the solo lanes. And the solo lanes as well, it also can function as a trading tool, as even if it's not one that directly deals damage, since you're building up the AD offered by it, in an extended trade or even in short trades for Pantheon, the way that he can build it up, you can effectively get more damage out of it. Conqueror stacks up to 10 times, and when it's fully stacked, you heal for 15% of the damage that you deal. Pantheon's a type of champion who uses his full rotation once and then is looking to finish off a target with Q or continue a fight onto multiple champions. And since he deals AoE damage in multiple ways, you can make pretty good. You can get pretty good value out of the 15% healing from all damage dealt, because if you're damaging multiple champions with one ability, then you're getting more healing from it, from that percentage increase. A keystone option like press the attack is kind of really bad, and I mean, geez, if you're playing him like support, press the attack is your best option, as you set up a, well, is it really? Maybe Hella Blades is your better option. Whatever, your cheese options are press the attack and Hella Blades, both really bad, but both make your W deal a lot of damage level 1. That's the huge value out of it. Press the attack for like most champions that are pretty similar to Pantheon, champions like kind of like Irelia. The benefit of that keystone is that those champions can get onto ranged champions early and then solo kill them in lane. Pantheon can still do that with Conquer and it's not gonna add functionality to his kit, compared to a champion like Irelia, who is more auto attack based and then therefore can make better use out of press the attack by one proccing it easier and then also having follow-up damage to the exposed damage that press the attack deals. So I don't think press the attack's a good keystone, especially in the carry roles. So starting off with the keystone that I would recommend is Conquer for mid and top lane Pantheon. With Conquer, it puts you in the precision tree, and then you have good options in your secondary runes in Triumph, Legend Tenacity, and then these two really don't change, as you really don't get any value out of Overheal. The excess shield like can't be built up, and then the extra mana from Presence of Mind goes entirely wasted. For Tenacity, you're giving up attack speed or lifesteal. It's kind of the same thing. Pantheon can get more effective damage if he can stay on a target versus having more auto attacks or healing a little bit from his auto attacks. Super anti-synergistic. For the 4th rune, you have good options in Coup de Grace or Last Stand. You're choosing how you get the damage amplification. So with Coup de Grace, it's 8% more damage to champions below 40% health. And then with Last Stand, you deal 5 to 11% increased damage to champions while you're below 60% health, all the way to 30%. And then that's when you get the maximum damage increase. You have to think about the matchup that you're playing into. If it's a weaker one, Coup de Grace is going to be giving you better values. But if you're in a matchup in which the enemy champion's tankier, so in the top lane, Last Stand's probably going to be giving you better value, as you're not going to be killing champions in like one rotation of your abilities. So champions like Mordekaiser, for example, you'd be getting way more value out of Last Stand, as he's not going to die immediately. But if you're like playing Pantheon mid lane into like Syndra, Lucian, etc., Coup de Grace is going to be better. So depending on your lane matchup, both of these have their own, they like range in value depending on like what you're playing into. If you're looking for a default, Coup de Grace is probably going to be better like 60-70% of the time, just naturally like of the champions they're going to be playing against in solo queue. And also how Pantheon's kit functions. You are looking to execute people with the Q, so it has the synergy there. And to have an 8% increase on the damage to his empowered Q is pretty nice. For the secondary runes, you really do have options in every single tree. You could go for something like Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter. Sudden Impact giving you more damage whenever you use your W or your ult, and then Relentless Hunter giving you more movement speed to get in range of targets. This is probably better in a mid lane matchup in which you're not really fighting the enemy mid laner. If they're a wave clear mid laner or a roaming mid laner, champions like Talon, Kiana, Syndra, etc., then having more movement speed to move out of mid lane to get into range to ult faster just makes things easier for you. And then with sudden impact, you gain access to basically like a minor keystone worth of damage. With sudden impact, after you exit stealth, use a dash, leap, blink, teleport. Dealing any damage to a champion grants you 7 lethality and 6 magic penetration for 5 seconds. That 7 lethality can go pretty far, as it just increases every single instance of Pantheon's damage, and if you're spinning a full rotation of your abilities on them, it's going to be pretty significant. And where you have so many ways to proc it in your W, ult, and flash, the downtime on it isn't really that bad. So it can equate to a lot. And I would only recommend running this mid lane, though, as the waves come and go a lot faster, so then you have roam timings versus top lane, where it's usually 2 or 3 waves are crashing and then you're stuck in lane. You could also run something like Sorcery second. I don't think this is like the craziest value for Pantheon solo lane, because normally you would want something like Mana Flow and Transcendence to have like some scaling, but Pantheon is really just looking to get like more damage from his runes, or like more survivability, damage, or yeah, that's really it. And with this, like, it's really hard to make use of the extra mana gain, and then it's not so hard to make use of the cooldown reduction gain, but Pantheon can also end up building 40% cooldown reduction really quickly. So it's more, I think Pantheon gets more value out of playing to spike at a certain point versus having a scaling option like this. With Resolve, it's kind of the same deal, as you could have something like Demolish Bone Plating, or Bone Plating and Overgrowth. With Bone Plating, it would help you in melee matchups because it gives you more effective HP whenever they're diving onto you. And then with Overgrowth, it's giving you more HP, basically for existing in the lane. Pantheon doesn't need this HP, and then he also doesn't need the effective HP. If you have a losing lane, Bone Plating is not going to save you. No runes are for Pantheon. So it's better just to let the minion wave come into you versus like having this band-aid of a rune, which is effectively how it functions for Pantheon. In Inspiration, you don't have, or you do have good options. You have Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic. In combination, they can give you more immediate HP. So this is going to be your better option in the top lane in most cases, as with Biscuit Delivery, every 2 minutes until 6, you receive a biscuit, and the biscuits restore 10% of your missing health and mana. Consuming a biscuit permanently increases your mana by 50. So you do the same thing Mana Flow wants to do, but immediately and a lot sooner in the game, which is going to equate to more because you need to gain these early game advantages on Pantheon. And then if you do so, the reward for doing so is really high. And then with Time Warp Tonic, consuming a potion or biscuit grants you 50% of its health and mana regeneration immediately, and then also gives you an additional 5% movement speed. So with this, the 5% movement speed goes a long way, as you need to run someone down to kill them in the top lane. And then even in the mid lane, it helps you whenever you're skirmishing in a 2v2 situation, or moving out of lane, or just taking trades in general, as dodging a skill shot becomes more paramount in the mid lane. With Time Warp Tonic 2, consuming a potion or biscuit granting you 50% of its health and mana regeneration immediately goes a long way whenever you're going for an all-in, because Pantheon, his E, effectively makes you invincible, but then where you can be playing at like 50% HP and then use your biscuit plus corrupting potion, and then you're at about 70% HP instantly. And then with that, you can really bait opponents into taking worse trades or committing onto you, especially melee champions. Or whenever you're trying to play for the waves early, especially if you're trying to do a 3-wave reset in the top lane, you can spend your HP and the enemy can't kill you at certain level timings, like let's say you're level 2 to their level 2. If you have the healing from Time Warp and Biscuits, then they can't kill you as you're just hitting the wave, but they're hitting you. Things like that. So it gives you a lot of lane control, and it gives you really good skirmishing tools. And it all just is generally useful for Pantheon. But if you're playing, again, in a mid lane matchup in which it's just wave clear, then Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter might as well be what you go with. You could also run Sudden Impact and Zombie Ward in the mid lane, where you could start Sweeper, and then in these wave clear matchups, anytime the enemy pushes out the wave and then wards, you do the same. You push out the wave, or you clear the wave that they pushed into you, and then you go clear their ward. You now have a ward for yourself, and then you've also gained bonus attack damage from Zombie Ward. So that's not a bad option either, and probably one of the more dominant ones for him. in the mid lane. So yeah, that's what I think about the runes for Pantheon solo lane. The shards would basically never change. It's always adaptive force, and then depending on your matchup, mid or top lane, you want the armor or magic resist corresponding with the matchup that you're playing into. So armor if you're playing into a physical damage matchup, or magic resist if you're playing into a magic damage matchup. Obviously, if you're playing into like mixed damage, most commonly top lane against champions like Akali, Kayle, Kinnan, then you could run armor and magic resist. It's completely fine for Pantheon. You're going to be itemizing AD anyways, and you're also going to be getting attack damage from Conquer. So missing out on this +6 attack damage early game isn't as bad because you need to be enduring the early game, usually against like a mixed damage lane like Kinnan, basically. So that's that. For jungle, I think that Conquer loses a lot of value because you might as well be going with something that gives you more immediate damage. Because if you're not snowballing and getting kills on Pantheon jungle, I think you are just falling off a cliff and you might as well have picked another jungler. Something like Conquer, you become a worse version of like Lee Sin because you don't scale nearly as hard. You don't hit like power spikes as hard as you could, and I really, geez, I wish I could express it better. You don't get the levels to get the more AD from Conquer. You have a harder time making use out of the like laning tools or like trading tools that are presented for the runes. For Pantheon, if he's laning, and I think you're better just to trade it all off for like a bit more burst, and you can do so with Domination with Electrocute. You could run Cheap Shot or Sudden Impact. Both are completely fine. I think if you're playing jungle, Cheap Shot's probably going to be giving you more, as with Cheap Shot, damaging a champion with impaired movement or actions deals bonus true damage based on your level, and it's only on a 4-second cooldown. So with that, anytime you stun them, anytime you hit them with red buff, and every time you blue smite them, you have instances to proc Cheap Shot, and then that's probably going to be giving you more damage overall. You can also be proccing Cheap Shot on multiple targets. With Sudden Impact, it's just about your burst onto one target, and it's only amplifying your damage to them. With Electrocute, hitting an enemy champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities deals bonus adaptive damage based on your level, and then 0.4 of your bonus AD, which is all you can be building early on Pantheon support, and then it's on a 25-second cooldown. So with Electrocute, you gain access to like this burst of damage that you otherwise wouldn't have, and it's more important whenever you're ganking on Pantheon jungle that whenever you W onto someone that they just die, because if they're not dying, oh man, like you're just behind the enemy jungler. If the enemy jungler is just killing their camps, you're probably behind on Pantheon jungle. And then for the third rune, I think you're best off with going Eyeball Collection because you should be looking to snowball the game by getting kills or assists. If you're playing Pantheon jungle, Eyeball Collection is going to be giving you bonus attack damage every time you get a kill and assist. And then for the fourth rune, I think it's going to be Relentless Hunter. Even though it might be tempting to take something like Ultimate Hunter, you should be getting kills pre-level 6 on Pantheon jungle. And then having this a little bit of cooldown reduction on your ult, you're already going to get the cooldown reduction through getting Caulfield's Warhammer in the build for Warrior enchantment in the jungle, and that's going to give you about the same amount of cooldown reduction on your ult that this rune would give you. So having more movement speed goes a lot further. The extra movement speed helps you reset onto the map, helps you move from camp to camp faster, helps you move around the entire map faster, helps you move into the enemy jungle faster, and helps you approach ganks faster. There's so much more utility in this extra out of combat movement speed that Relentless Hunter offers versus a little bit of cooldown reduction on the ult that might matter like past like 17 minutes or something, but probably won't. With Relentless Hunter, it's based off a Bounty Hunter stack, which means each unique takedown you get builds towards it. So getting a kill or assist on the enemy top laner, jungler, mid laner, AD, support, they're all a unique takedown, and then the unique takedown will convert into out of combat movement speed with Relentless Hunter. For the secondary runes, if you're playing jungle, I think really your only good bet is Sorcery Tree with Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking. Nimbus Cloak giving you more movement speed whenever you cast a summoner spell, so that's going to help you stick onto targets whenever you're using your blue smite or flash. It also has the utility of the potential defensive utility. Whenever you blue smite someone, it helps you run away from them if you're just in a bad situation in the jungle, and otherwise like you just wouldn't be getting away from them with Pantheon. He has no movement speed abilities. Like yes, you can stun them and use your E, but you're not getting away from them. With Water Walking, it gives you extra movement speed and a little bit of attack damage whenever you're in the river. So this in combination with Relentless Hunter helps you approach for early ganks, and then also helps you whenever you're fighting around objectives. So it has a scaling utility in it, and that's really the best part of it is you have the extra movement speed, which can equate to more damage whenever you're fighting around objectives, and that's really it. To trade all of this off for something like Coup de Grace and I suppose Triumph, I don't really see it as you're going to have enough damage if you're ganking, because it's not just your damage alone against the enemy champion. It's your damage plus the laner, your ally laner's damage on the enemy champion. So I don't think you need to amplify it with Coup de Grace. The degree to which you're amplifying your damage with Coup de Grace is also not as felt with like a burst-oriented Pantheon build, because if you have more DPS and you get more value out of Coup de Grace, in most cases, you'd really only be amplifying your damage to like one of your empowered Q against a target that's low. But if you didn't finish off a target that you're ganking, it's probably just because the soul lane or you just didn't have enough damage. So I think the utility and the movement speed offered from Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking goes so much further than having something like Coup de Grace and Triumph in the precision tree second if you're playing Pantheon jungle, as it's such a volatile jungler anyways. For the adaptive runes, I think you should go with attack speed, adaptive force, and armor. Since you're playing in the jungle, the attack speed really matters because your first clear sucks without it, and the attack speed's going to be going further because you're always able to be hitting jungle camps, versus whenever you're playing in a lane, it doesn't help you as much. And then since you're playing in the jungle as well, the armor is going to be pretty necessary, as Pantheon's first clear is really weak, so you take a lot of damage, and the armor just negates more damage from the jungle camps than it otherwise would. So that's my thoughts on Pantheon runes for mid, jungle, and top lane. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. If you think I was completely wrong or something, let me know in the comments. If you play a lot of Pantheon, maybe I was off about something. And if you're interested in watching me talk or play League of Legends, you can check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/SorryNelson. Bye-bye. See you later, man. I liked old Pantheon. I'm going to be honest. Old Pantheon with Talia bot lane, that was pretty sick. I fucking love it. I like new Pantheon, but he's just... I think this season they're going to add like his real numbers, you know?